Hello, good afternoon. Gary Edward Gettle, psychologist, psychotherapist. Today is Saturday, the 7th of June, 2025, and today I'm going to talk about how to deal with aggressive people, which is very nice considering we tend to have that to deal with every time. I'm here on my terrace in Lausanne. I think it's raining again, so that's just how life is. Fortunately, I have a part of the terrace that is protected so that even if it's raining, I don't get too wet. Don't get wet at all, actually, unless it's a storm. So, because it's the continuation of the series of Change Your Life in 70 Days, 70-day challenge, just to tell you a little bit about my day, how things have been. It's Saturday. I went to the fitness this morning, and that passed relatively well, except for the end. And I'll tell you about that in a moment, because the aggressive person today was me. And the person that was dealing with me was dealing with me in a very appropriate way. And I will talk about that because it's one of the ways to deal with aggressive people, which I will mention in a moment. After that, I took my daughter shopping, and then I took some garden stuff to the tip, and then I came back and I was exhausted. I just had a coffee. I'd like to have another one, but I don't have time. So anyway, so that's my day. So dealing with aggressive people. Now there are a number of different ways that I have in the past, directly or indirectly, myself or other people, including the person at the fitness this morning, dealt with aggressive people in an appropriate way that has functioned, that has succeeded. What is important is to try and assess, and I know you don't have much time because often you're faced with this huge experience of aggression and you don't know how to deal with it. But if you think about it beforehand, if you say, look, these are the systems that are in place, these are certain possibilities that I can try, and if you can hear the rain, I can, then you would already have them sort of like in mind. And you think, oh, this is a bit like this situation, maybe I can try that. Oh, now we can hear the rain. So let's start. Let's begin with. So the first, the most simple, most obvious is just negotiate. It's to say, okay, this is your position. You don't like my position. What can we do? How can we deal with it? And hopefully, for some people who, I don't know, maybe you work in a shop and someone brought something back and they're upset because it doesn't work or it doesn't function, and you say, okay, well, let's discuss it. We can send it to a repair. We can send it to see if there's something wrong with it. We can have a look at it. We can try and change the batteries if it's got batteries. If it's got battery, don't change the battery. And so, so you can be just. Once I remember one of my workshops, Positive Earth. Be practical, be sensible, see what can be done, help find a solution, and hopefully the person will be ready, willing to put their anger aside, their aggressivity aside, and um, and go into some sort of positive discussion of how to get things done. People often, it's just very interesting, timid people often, when they have to deal with something that stresses them out, they often get very aggressive because they can't just go and say, hey, this doesn't work. It's like it's very tough for them, very difficult for them. So they say build up all their energy to cope with this difficult situation. And they have to get themselves in an aggressive mode to actually deal with something for them, which is complicated, to complain about something, take something back, try and organize a change in something. And if you're just positive and reasonable and open, quite soon they just let that drop because it's not necessary to be aggressive. They can be heard, they can be dealt with appropriately, and so that can go. So the first thing is just to negotiate, just to be reasonable and offer them a possibility to a solution if it's possible. Second situation you can find is where the person is actually in a bit of a negative emotional state. Now, this morning, Mr. Imperfect here, I found out from the fitness that my abonnement What do you call it? Is that in English also? I don't remember. Anyway, um, was about to run out, which actually suited me because I would like to have a break in the summer. So it suited me, it was going to run out. But then he informed me that I had 8 sessions that I hadn't used. And as this is very, very expensive, this system that I use, all of a sudden I got very upset. Upset because it's like 2 months out of a 12-month package. I'm going to lose the equivalent of 2 months worth of sessions because I hadn't been aware that I had to catch up all the sessions within the period of time that the thing was working. And so I got frustrated. And the guy had reactions to having an aggressive person facing him. And he did something that was very appropriate that I wanted to talk about anyway. And it's interesting that I actually saw somebody do that today, is that he did what I call, he became a tree. Now, to become a tree in that situation is you make sure your roots are well in the ground, that the territory which you are protecting, you're holding on to, is firm. And he was very firm. He was very clear. He said, look, I'm very sorry, because it wasn't aggressive against me. He says, but those are the terms of the agreement. And I said, yeah, but I wasn't aware of them. He says, yes, but they're written here. Literally, they were attached to the counter. And I sort of vaguely glanced at it, but if you said it's there, it's there. He says, look, if you've got to the time of your abandonment, the time that you booked for, says that's it. That's limited time, and if you miss sessions, you need to catch them up within that time. I understand you don't want people coming months later and saying, "I want this session, this and this session." You've got a period of time, but at the time, I hadn't been aware of it, and it frustrated me and irritated me. Even though partly I was satisfied to finish on the time, I felt that they were stealing all these sessions off me. I felt very bad about that, so I expressed it, and he just stood there. And he said, look, those are the rules. It's not me that's made the rules. The rules are there. I'm just here. I just happen to work here. He was totally right. Now, if you think about a tree and the wind blowing and the storm or whatever, it blows and it blows. The tree doesn't move. The tree doesn't fight. The tree doesn't complain. It doesn't attack. It doesn't counterattack. It just allows the wind to go around it. Just goes there, and the wind, because it's round, so it's not blocking. There's nothing that holds it. It's really of a shape which is perfect for the wind to go around it, and the wind goes round it until the wind subsides. So I spent not very long, maybe a minute or 2 minutes, expressing my frustration, and I said, I'm very frustrated. This is just, I can hear you're very frustrated. There's not much I can do. So I went and sat down and I breathed for a few moments and the storm passed. And so I started to look at my agenda because I didn't think I had any time. And he said that there was a Saturday which I wanted to come, which I couldn't come. And then all of a sudden, out of a miracle, he found, maybe he just made a big effort. I have no idea what he did. He found a moment on that Saturday which I wanted, and then I found some other moments in the weeks. And can I do 2 a week anyway, because it's to do with electrodes and things. It's not possible. So he stood his ground quietly, firmly, clearly. He stood his ground, and that worked. It worked because after a while the storm blows, and I've had patients like that are sensitive, and I've had to change appointments, and they've been very upset and very aggressive. You promised me this, and we've organized this, and da 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 da. And I just have to say, yes, I'm very, very sorry. Something has come up. I cannot assume that appointment that I promised you, and that's it. I cannot do that. If I could do it, I would, but I can't. So I'm sorry. We need to find another appointment. And I'm offering you this and this. And eventually they cool down and say, okay, I'll take that. And it's sorted. But they have to blow off steam. And the best thing when in that situation, when someone's blowing off steam, is just let them blow off steam. You do not move. You do not bend. You just stay firm and quiet like a tree rooted in the ground. So one way of dealing with things is to be a tree. So another thing that I found to be very interesting, this is a story that dates 60 years. Yep, 60 years. 60 years this dates. 60 years ago, I was at school because I was only little. Yes, I was little once. And there was a gang of boys that were abusing another boy. Is often in classes somebody that is the scapegoat, what they say in French, the souffre-douleur, the one that suffers pain. And still they just enjoy hassling and making fun of him. If I remember, he was small, he wore glasses, the usual sort of classic nerdy sort of child that gets beaten up by others. And there was another group that was headed by a guy that I quite liked, actually. And I wasn't in his group, but I was sort of like vaguely friendly with him. We're talking about little kids, remember? And he came up with his group of people behind him, and he saw this other guy being abused. And he did something I thought was totally brilliant, and I still think it's totally brilliant 60 years later. But for an 8-year-old to have this reaction was just incredible. He turned around to the guys beating this poor kid, and he said, "That's mine. If anyone's going to beat him up, it's me. I've decided he's my victim." And I have no idea what words he used. Obviously, he didn't use those words, but that's basically what he said. He said, if anyone's going to beat him up, it's me. He's mine. And that is what I call the head of the wolf pack. He's the head of a pack, and because he's the head of that pack, he gets first pickings. He can go and attack what he wants. He can go and eat what he wants. He has the power because of his position and his stature. And that, like, there's one group of wolves, another group of wolves, there is a prey, there's something there, and he says, look, me, I'm bigger than you, my group's bigger than yours, that's my territory, that's mine. Someone's going to eat that, I'm going to eat it, bugger off. And the others went. The guy never, ever did anything against the other guy. He protected him. But what a way to protect him. It was just absolutely brilliant. But brilliant for an 8-year-old. What is so impressive. Now, talking about being more powerful, I was about to. I've just done the French version of this, so this is the English version. And while I was doing the French version of this, I was telling a story. When I was telling the story, I reminded myself that I hadn't created this attitude. It was actually something I'd already seen. And so I reminded myself of that. So this next way of dealing with aggression, and it can be a group that's aggressive, it's not just one person, is to be the biggest dog. So you've got the wolf pack, the biggest wolf pack, and the wolf pack leader, but this is just a dog. This is being by yourself. And the situation that I remember that I was in was that I was coming home on the bus one evening, and at the back of the bus there was this very tall, big guy that I could smell that he'd been smoking a joint. It was quite strong. He wasn't smoking at the moment, and I could see there was a couple of beer cans. So I could see this guy was already a bit relaxed. Well, relaxed he wasn't. The bus arrived at the next bus stop, which was actually the sort of the metro station. Underground, subway, whatever. And a lot of people got on, and he saw what I presume was his girlfriend. So he moved up the bus to say hello and bring her back to his seat. And it was he was going up to get her, this other guy getting on the bus pushed him. No big deal. This happens lots of people. He didn't like it. He turned around and said, "What are you doing? Who are you to push me like that?" The guy said, "Oh, I'm sorry." And you'd hope that when someone apologizes, you're the one that cools down, but it didn't. There was obviously something with him that wanted to be aggressive, wanted to be a fight. I have no idea, but he started shouting more and more at this poor bugger. And how dare you do this? And no respect, and just total rubbish. But I could see he was building himself up to be violent. And I thought, if he gets like that, he's going to hit the other guy and he's going to hurt him because he's a big, strong guy. Somebody should do something. Well, somebody didn't do anything. Anyway, it came down to me. So I thought, what the hell can I do? Because to apologize more to try and cool him down, it wasn't going to work because the other guy had just done everything was appropriate. So I had a reflex. Now I know that maybe that reflex came from the other situation. Maybe. And I just built up the most powerful anger I could find within myself. And I turned to the guy and I screamed. The whole bus went totally dead. Went dead. I said, "You stop that now, and you go and sit down now." And he looked at me, he looked down at me because he was taller than me. I thought, shit, if he hits me, I'm going to be in hospital. He looked at me and he went, "Okay." And he went, he took his girlfriend, sat down, everything. It was just incredible to see. And now, when I'm telling it, when I told it before, I realized that this wasn't the first time that something like this had happened in my life. This had happened when I was about 16, 17. So that's 50 years ago. So it's historic, my stories, aren't they? I went to Italy with the school trip to Italy to learn to ski. And we were in this ski resort in Italy with our skis on, waiting in line to go on the telecabin up the mountain, and standing in line like everybody else was. And then we saw this group of Italian teenagers, all quite tall as well. I don't know why. All my stories are these tall people, tall adolescents. Whatever. Anyway, this group coming, 4 or 5 of them, just walking just past everybody. It's like, oh, we were Italians. This is our town. We can just go past everybody. Well, anyway, the teacher that was with us was sort of short. Even for us, he was short. And they called him Harry Frapp. I don't know if it was his real name. It wasn't my teacher, but everybody called him that. He was short, he had a little moustache. A bit Hitlerish, but the moustache was slightly bigger. Anyway, he saw these guys coming, and he got out of the queue, and he turned at them, and he looked up at them, because they were huge compared to him. He was small, they were huge. And he started screaming, "Get back in line! Who do you think you are to go past these people?" And he screamed at them in English. I doubt they understood a word of English, but they just felt this energy of this guy. They just stopped just behind us to push themselves in the queue behind us. And that was it. They stayed there. And that was so, they weren't aggressive. They weren't aggressive at all. He didn't deal with aggressive people, but I saw that happen. So maybe somewhere that I integrated that with the other guy in the bus. I have no idea. Anyway, I just thought I'd tell that because sometimes when I do stuff, it's because I have seen or heard or felt somebody do something like it. And I like to acknowledge the fact that it's not always because I'm just totally brilliant that I always come up with the solutions of things. So what's the other thing? So duck and run. Duck and run is what I'd say is linked to American football or rugby or something like that, because you've got someone that's trying to block you, trying to aggress you, trying to do something bad. In the games of football is to steal the ball, and you need to find a way to stop that happening. Now, the first time that I had an experience of something like this, I was at university, and I was with some friends. I came down to see a friend, Kevin, in his area of the neck of the woods, and I went out with him and some of his friends, and we went to some of these small party places. It wasn't like a disco or anything, it was just a big room and a hall somewhere, and there was alcohol and things like that. And we went in and we were just hanging around, and for some reason I think the people didn't like him, or I have no idea, or one of his friends had an argument with somebody else, and we saw that it was going badly, and I just opened my big mouth and said something weird, and gave us a moment just to get out. And strangely enough, something similar like that happened a few years later. I was in Scotland. Was it? No, it wasn't Elgin. It was one of these very, very northern, one of the very, very northern little towns in Scotland. And Bucky, Banff, no, it was higher up than that, whatever. And we were doing something called a traveling sale. My father, he would book so many vans, and him and his associates would drive up, and we'd rent a room, a hall, a dance floor, whatever, part of a hotel, and we'd set up shop like a store. And that was what we do. My brother was selling big electrical stuff like record players and things like that. I was selling small stuff, watches and lighters and that sort of stuff. And anyway, so we got there, and it was one evening, more than likely a Friday night. I don't know why it comes in. It was a Friday night. And then so we went into the bar of the hotel. It's quite a small bar. And it was full of these big, every time I tell the story, all these huge people. It just happens to be what it was. These huge Scots guys, big Scottish, comes up, and just drinking and having my brother, for some strange reason here, unfortunately happened to knock one of these Scottish guys, and he spilled a bit of his beer. And he started to apologize, and the Scots guy, notice he had an English accent. What are you doing here? And all of a sudden, the aggressivity against the English. I'm not saying all the Scots are aggressive against English, but there's quite a few bits of bad blood between some Scots and some English. And it's just, especially the north of Scotland, it was like lost in the Stone Age, sort of. And I'm not so sure some of these people were not from the Stone Age. They didn't seem to be particularly bright. Anyway, so he turned and he said, I'm gonna hit you. And I thought, oh shit. First of all, if he hits my brother is actually a bit smaller than me, he's going to do him a lot of harm. And then all of them could turn on us, him and I, and we could finish really in hospital, really unwell. And I had this inspiration. I have no idea why. So I turned to this Scots guy and I said, hit him. I hit to the Scots guy to hit my brother. Hit him. And it's like, what? It's like totally stopped. The machine, which was supposed to be his brain, just blocked. He just doesn't understand why I should tell him, me, the English person that looked very similar to the person he was going to beat to hell, why I should say hit him. It's like, what? Like the machine blocked. And that was the moment that we got out. Like everybody stopped because they were just shocked. They didn't know what to say, what to do. So this sort of like hit and run sort of thing. Like if you're a rugby player or you're a football player and you have a blocker that comes and blocks the guy so you can escape, block and run. Block and run. Find something to stop the other person in the moment, gives you the time to escape. Because running away, if you can make it, is usually the best deal in an aggressive situation, especially if there are several people and especially if they could be violent. So that's something that is worth keeping an eye on. So what else do we have? Negotiation, the biggest dog, the aggressor, the tree. So what we have left is the Buddha. Now, the Buddha is the most scary thing to do because the Buddha does not move. The Buddha just stays there. Now, when I was telling this story in the French thing, again, it reminded me of a second story. So the first story, at one point this is not quite so long ago. This is only 40 years ago. So we have 40 years ago, 60, 50, 40 years ago. It's becoming more recent, it goes ahead. And I was looking after a home with my then wife. We had this big house in Bidston near Birkenhead, which is near Liverpool in England. And she'd got had because she was we were living in London, and she wanted to move out of London. She got sick of London, and she had a client that came from this place that was selling his house, and he was willing to sell her for a very good price. So she decided we'd move to this place, the Lost and Beyond. And so we had this big house. It was much bigger than we needed. And at that time, there was this situation where the council was trying to house teenagers. The situation was that the teenagers had been in homes for either orphans or with problematic parents. So they were looked after by the council. When they got to 16 years old, for a reason legal or political or whatever, they couldn't keep them any longer in these homes. But they weren't old enough to have their own apartment because that was at 18. So between 16 and 18, there was this sort of window of non-opportunity where they had to try and find a way to house these teenagers, 16, 18 years old. Because we had this house and because they paid us, because we were giving them room and board, so we got paid for it, it was a good deal. So we housed these teenagers. There were quite a few of them. We had like 4, I think, from time to time. So and one of them that we had was this young man, very straight. He was trained to be a chef. It was always very well dressed. He had very shiny shoes. He was totally invested in this. I'm going to be a chef. I'm going to be a chef, and he's going to sort out his life. And he was very, very controlled all the time. He never expressed much. He always kept to himself, and everything was fine until one day. I have no idea what happened in his life because he didn't tell us. Something really bad happened, and he bought himself a bottle of whiskey, and he drank more than likely a lot of it. We didn't know that because the teenagers had their own lives. And it was only when this badness started to happen that one of the girls ran down and said, "Hey, this guy has just come out of his room. He's in a terrible state. He's incredibly aggressive, and he's got this glass mug which he'd broken." So he had this big glass tanker with these very, very, very sharp glass edges on it. And he was going around waving it, screaming at people. And could I, as the man of the house, go upstairs and sort it out? Because everybody was scared. And I presumed that someone was phoning the police, but in the meantime, someone had to do something with him. So I went upstairs and I took in the situation. There was this sort of very, very, he wasn't very tall, but I think he was quite strong. It was narrow, but quite wily, quite strong, with very drunk, very angry with this tanker, this broken tanker. And I thought, if I confront him and try to wrestle this tanker off him, one or both of us will end up in hospital because it was very, very dangerous. And so I decided what to do. Now, what I did, people shouted at me I shouldn't be doing this because it was the wrong thing to do. I sat down cross-legged. I was blocking the stairs, so he couldn't get to the stairs to go downstairs. And he couldn't do any damage to anybody or anything else. Maybe if I'd let him in the house, maybe it would have been better. But I blocked the stairs and I sat down and I became a Buddha. What motivated me to try that as a system, as a way, a solution, I have no idea. I just sat down and I became calm. And I talked to him, and he screamed at me, and he shouted at me, and he threatened me. But I didn't feel that he was aggressive against me. I could feel his pain. I knew he was suffering. I knew he didn't want to hurt me. If I would have done anything, he might have hurt me an awful lot, but not because he had any aggressivity against me, but just because he was trying to defend himself or express his pain and suffering. So I felt intrinsically I wasn't actually in danger from him. And I just stayed still and I stayed calm and eventually quieted down. And that's an important lesson. If you stay calm with somebody that's very aggressive, if you can not respond to that aggressivity, it can pass. Now, when I was telling this story, I actually realized I got my computer's done something doing stuff. It reminded me of another instance that I want to share with you because, again, it makes me a hero. Is I was working in the psychiatric hospital. Yes, I have worked in a psychiatric hospital when I was a student because psychology students could work nights and they get paid very much for it. For a few nights' work, it's great money. So I was working nights, and then one night there was this warning that there was one of the patients that had lost it, and could we go and help? Now, at that time, a young lady who I knew very, very well was the doctor of that service. And so we went, and there was this guy that was in all the state. This guy was a mountain. He wasn't just big. He was basically standing on the I don't know if he'd broken the door or just come out the door, but he was actually standing at the doorway of his room, and he filled most of it. It was huge, and he was really, really, really aggressive, really violent. And nobody knew what to do. And so I just went to talk to him. So I was standing there talking to him, and all of a sudden he grabbed me by the hair here. And he was holding me really by the hair. And I was thinking, oh my God, if he rips my hair out, will the hospital pay me to get some new put in? And everybody's running around, and the doctor there, she was phoning her chief because she'd already given him the maximum dose of comments that you're allowed. You see in these films that they run with these big syringes full of whatever, and then they give them this huge dose, and they go, well, she done it. Nothing can happen. He's just so big and so. So I just talked to him, and I continued to talk to him, and after a while, miracle, he calmed down, and I got him to walk back into his room, and he sat down on the bed, and I sat down and I talked to him, and it just calmed down. And then all of a sudden, like 6 orderlies and the doctor came in with this huge syringe and sorted. But it worked. So it was actually painful for the hair, but it was okay. It didn't come out. It's still there. See, it's not bad. You want to know how long ago that was? That was about 25 years ago. Just give you some sort of time, something a bit more modern than that. I have more recent stories, but I think we've come to the end today. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. I hope that these stories, they are true stories. I've not made them up. These are true stories that happened to me, or people that happened to me, or that I've seen. And they might give you some ideas of how to deal with aggressive people. If you like this, subscribe, share, let people know what I'm doing. Hopefully people will find it useful and helpful. Here 6 times a week for the 70-day challenge, just till I think it's the 5th of July. So I'm here 6 times a week until then. So benefit from that. I'm here Sunday nights, guided meditation or hypnosis. And that's at 8:30 at night, CEST, Central European Summer Time. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday night, again at 8:30 CEST for a subject, whatever I find interesting in the day. And then the Saturday afternoon at 4:30, like you see now. So thank you for your time, and hope you find something interesting in that. And I'll see you next time. Bye for now.